I'm the lead organizer with Greenpeace North Carolina, based right here in Charlotte. And Greenpeace is one of the 18 proud sponsors for this event, and we are very happy to have everyone here today to help jumpstart the energy revolution. I want to say a special thank you to Myers Park Baptist Church and the Earth Keepers for hosting us. Can we get a quick round of applause? Thanks. So to start today, I actually want to share a little bit of personal stories about how I've come to do this work and actually why we're all here today as part of this event. So again, my name is Monica, and I'm originally from Chicago. And when it was time for me, Chicago. When it was time for me to go to college, like most teenagers, I decided to move as far away from home as I could get, and still wanted a little bit of a safety net. So I decided to move to Los Angeles, where my dad's family is, and went to college at Pomona College there. I was finally going to be living in a state with palm trees and sunshine and not crazy thunderstorms and winters that are pretty harsh. So while at Pomona College, every weekend I took the train into the city to go visit my grandmother and family there. And I have really fond memories of sitting in my grandmother's favorite restaurant that she actually went to growing up as a kid in LA, and sipping on a cup of iced tea, listening to her recall stories of being a young woman. My grandmother had a cough for as long as I can remember, but she never smoked a cigarette a day of her life. And towards the end of my first semester in college, her cough got progressively worse. Sometimes it would shake her entire frail body, and I'm 5 feet tall and so is she. So lifelong exposure to toxic pollutants in our air had finally taken its toll on my grandmother's lungs. And the week before my finals, in my first year in college, my grandmother passed away. She was 83 years old. And I spent that summer mourning her loss with my family, and unsure if I was going to return back to California and go to school. I also spent that summer looking for answers. And I decided I would go back to college, but I wanted to better understand what had taken my grandmother's life too soon. And since joining the pre-med track was going to set me back an entire year in school, I decided to switch some of my classes that sophomore year and decided to enroll in a public health class. And this course was especially unique because it focused not just on the statistics and the information on how to cure diseases, but really on what it is that's causing them and how to prevent them. So I started learning about the emissions from cars and coal-fired power plants, that the smoke out of exhaust pipes and smokestacks is actually a slew of dangerous substances like mercury and lead and arsenic, and one of the most deadly, carbon dioxide. I learned how health problems ranging from asthma to bronchitis, from heart attacks and heart disease to cancer and premature death were actually the cause from these different pollutants. And then my sadness for my grandmother turned to anger. My grandmother and thousands of other people lose their lives every year because of the decision of energy industries to continue to rely on dirty and polluting energy sources. Learning what I did in those classrooms actually brought me here to Charlotte, North Carolina, and to be standing in front of you and talking about this right now. I decided not to spend my time looking for a cure, but fighting against the causes of some of the biggest health threats, so that others don't have to watch their loved ones, their grandmothers, suffer and die from fossil fuel pollution. But I also know that not everyone is here because they lost their grandmother. We're actually here for a lot of different reasons. Some of us are here because we know when I said that carbon dioxide might be the deadliest of all emissions, that is true after watching the disasters that have unfolded in the Philippines from the hurricane as we see the death toll continue to rise. Other of us are here because we can't afford to keep paying for ever-increasing electric bills. Some of us are tired of corporations putting profit over the lives of people and our planet. Amen. And others of us want less government influence over our lives, and we want our private property should be our business alone. Some of us are hoping to break into the next big job market and reboost the economy with local jobs. And other of us are concerned about local environmental pollution in our air and water because of the reliance on dirty energy. Finally, some of us are here for the health of our community. So I urge you to look around the room for a second. See the people that you're actually sitting next to. This is the group of people that is helping bring the clean, affordable energy that we need here to Charlotte. And whatever the reason that you're in the room today, we're coming together to advocate for the same thing. We're Democrats and Republicans and independents too. We are Black and white, Latino and Asian American. We are young and old, and somewhere in between. We are upper class and working class, and our differences is what make us strong. So this summer, we saw a kickoff of solar energy in publications, including the New York Times, and talking about what solar energy revolution means right here. And all those publications are right. 2/3 of the world's solar power has come online since 2011. In the last 2 years, 2/3 of the solar power in the world is turning on. And just like the telephone industry, energy companies today are faced with a choice to either abandon an outdated business model and embrace new advancing technology or be left behind. Solar energy on our rooftops is as inevitable as cell phones. The question is simply whether solar will be provided by transnational monopoly corporations or small mom-and-pop shoulder shops. But solar is here now. So I'm very excited for today's panel and the discussion that we are going to have about what our energy future looks like here in Charlotte. We'll explore both the benefits and challenges of solar, as well as its impact on all of us, and also hear about 2 specific programs that have kicked off in North Carolina. But before I begin, I must say a really big thank you, and actually welcome Shannon up to help thank everyone and all the sponsoring organizations here as well. Today would not be possible without all of you that are here today, and I'm really excited for what we continue to do beyond. So here we're going to welcome Shannon Binns from Sustain Charlotte.
See if I can raise this up a little bit. I'm not that tall, but I'm a little taller than 5 feet. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming out on a Saturday. I realized I should have drank some coffee today. I didn't realize I was going after Monica. And Monica, for those of you who know her, is about 110% the average energy level. So I'll do my best to follow Monica. And I get the easy job of really just getting to thank all of you for coming and for thanking our sponsors. I guess I feel inspired. I should tell a personal story, and I don't really have one prepared, but I can tell you that I decided yesterday to put solar on my roof, just yesterday. And what was amazing is, thanks to federal and state tax credits, as many of you know, it's actually cheaper for me to go the solar route after the tax credits. And it's for, and this, I don't know how many people have this. I didn't even know this was possible. I think this is pretty good technology, but it's not solar electric I'm putting. It's to power my furnace and my air conditioner. So it's solar air conditioning, and it's not entirely. There's a backup fuel supply, but it's a solar thermal technology. So that's pretty neat. So that's my personal story. But I do want to take a moment before we get to the panel and thank the 18 organizations that sponsored this event today, one of which is my organization, Sustain Charlotte. But also, if I mention your organization or you're with an organization that's mentioned, if you wouldn't mind standing up so we all know who's behind this. And of course, we should first, I'll take a round of applause if we can for Monica for organizing this event. Okay, so first we have the A. Philip Randolph Institute. I don't know if they're here today, but the Appalachian Institute of Renewable Energy, the Center for Community Change, Charlotte Environmental Action, Clean Air Carolina. There you go. Myers Park Baptist Church Earth Keepers, providing the venue. Please feel free to stand up. Environment North Carolina, Greenpeace, Monica's organization, of course. League of Conservation Voters, Charlotte. League of Women Voters, Charlotte. All right. NAACP Charlotte Branch. NC Conservation Network. The North Carolina Interfaith Power and Light. Over here. Shift the Climate, which is a film made by a local Charlotte-based brother and sister, a film on climate change. Sierra Club Central Piedmont Group, over here today. and the U.S. Green Building Council of North Carolina. So lots of folks, helped plan this event today, and hopefully you all enjoyed yourself and will continue to do so. And without further ado, I will turn it over to this woman to my right, who I haven't yet had the pleasure to meet, who will introduce the panel, I assume. So enjoy.
Shorty up here. Good morning, everyone.
And your name is?
I'm going to tell you. My name is Ula Reeves, and I'm with Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. We're a regional energy advocacy organization working on the whole litany of energy issues that are before us today. For those of you who might have been expecting Leilani Munter, I'm not a race car driver, and I do not have a Tesla. Although I really wish I did, and it's super awesome that Leilani can afford a Tesla because she's helping to bring the cost down for those of us who might someday hope to be able to drive such a beautiful electric car. Southern Alliance for Clean Energy is also a sponsor of today's event, so I'm very pleased to be here. I don't have a personal story to share either, but I will tell you that my day job is working on coal. And I'm excited to be part of a solar event because it's happy, it's the future, it's today, it's a very optimistic discussion that we're going to have today. And coal is a huge challenge in our region, but I'd like to say that this year we have made incredible progress around the Southeast in getting rid of coal. Here in North Carolina alone, Duke Energy has made some really notable commitments to retiring coal-fired power plants, and the Riverbend plant here in Charlotte has actually advanced schedule and will be retiring much sooner than originally planned for. So that's great. In Georgia Power announced and was approved by the Public Service Commission to reduce their coal fleet by 2,000 megawatts, which is pretty substantial, and they're bringing on 525 megawatts of solar partially in place of that coal. And just Thursday, the Tennessee Valley Authority announced to retire 3,300 megawatts of coal-fired units, so that's 6 units at 3 power plants in Alabama and Kentucky, and you all know that these are global problems, so that win is a win for us too. We all breathe this air, so cleaner water, cleaner air, less global warming pollution. We are making progress on getting rid of coal and making room for solar. So, I'd like to invite our panel up, and let's go ahead and get started. If everyone wants to take their seats, that would be wonderful. And I'll introduce each person individually. So starting us off first on the panel, we'll have Sean Lamont, who I haven't met yet, but it's a pleasure to meet you. He is a managing partner with the Sustainable Energy Community Development Company here in Charlotte, and he served 12 years in elected office, including in the North Carolina House of Representatives, where he represented Southeast Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and he's also served multiple terms as mayor and city councilman of the city of Matthews. Mr. Lamont is a decorated U.S. Navy veteran and the founder and former CEO of an innovative glass recycling company, which I'm very intrigued about. He earned his degree in economics from North Carolina State University. So I'm pleased to welcome Sean Lamont, and if you would like to go ahead and just come up to the podium and start to do that.
Hi, Bill. Just wanted to make some very brief remarks. First off, thank you very much for being here. We're in an extremely exciting time. As an economist, I can tell you that the world is changing rapidly. It's changing with regard to energy in a way that I think most everybody in this room is going to be pleased with. I know there's a lot of frustration that things are not changing as rapidly. As I'm sitting in here this morning, a number of people that are frustrated with Duke, as an example. And I got to admit, I'm a Duke fan. My family's on Duke stock for 4 generations. I don't think we will win and get where we want the way they have been for 100 years as a monopoly. How they're acting right now is completely understandable in the social and economic environment. However, it's not saying that their behavior is in their own best interest. I was lucky enough to be in the legislature back when cell phones were coming about. They show my age. Back then, AT&T was completely opposed to cell phones. They were going to cherry pick the telecommunications industry. They were going to raise costs for the poor to have telephones. All of this was thrown out there. What's AT&T doing? Selling cell phones. Duke's going to be the same. And y'all can just have faith. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of when, not if. Duke's being confronted with a lot of different things that are forcing their opinion to change. They have that crisis going on, I think, in their own boardrooms right now. They just haven't quite been able to see the way out of the dark. But I congratulate y'all on being here. I congratulate you on your interest and the fact that the pressure you as groups and individuals are putting on Duke is, in fact, the motivating genesis under their change. If it weren't for that, they would have no reason not to just continue to do things that they always have. So please keep up your advocacy. Be loud. Be very loud. And don't ever stop. And you'll get to where you want to be.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to introduce Katie Gray. Katie is the program director for the Blue Ridge Sustainability Institute in Asheville. Katie is the architect and director of Solarize Asheville, which she'll be speaking about today. Previously, Katie worked at a think tank in Washington, D.C. as an analyst and also as an analyst at the Rocky Mountain Institute Investment. Man, that just rolls off. Yeah, you can tell what I read in my spare time. Rocky Mountain Investment Management Fund. She has completed original research in cost-benefit analysis and has a bachelor's in economics and business from the University of Colorado. She's the president of the Asheville-based clean energy platform Sawtooth Inc. Welcome, Katie.
Yay!
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm going to just kind of do an overview of Solarize Asheville if you're not familiar with how that model works in that program. And we can go to the first slide, but I guess just to start with, I was thinking on the drive here from Asheville, I was at this conference in Chicago a few weeks ago, and the big statistic and thing that everyone kept spouting out was how the average American thinks about energy for 6 minutes a year. So all of us being here today prove we're not average, and that's sort of, I think that's really important just to lay the foundation for all these conversations that what we're up against, aside from political or regulatory or financial issues, is the bigger issue that most people, energy and clean energy just isn't on their radar. So stuff like this, I think, the more education, outreach, conversations, articles, whatever that we can do, that stuff matters, and that helps change that people's behavior around energy. But anyway, so the Solarize Asheville program, the model came out of Portland, Oregon in 2009, and it worked really well in Portland, and I can get into some details later, but this model then spread across the West Coast, down the West Coast, across the Midwest, up into the Northeast. Solarize Asheville is the first Solarize campaign in the Southeast, and so what we did is we organized citywide group purchasing of solar PV to reduce the cost for homeowners. So we know that high upfront cost is the #1 barrier to solar. It's really expensive, and in North Carolina and other places where we don't have the third-party PPA model, it's just, we don't have, the financing isn't really there yet, so it's this big financing issue. So we organized group purchasing to bring the cost down. Then we brought in a financing partner from Boston called Admiral's Bank, and they do a specific type of solar financing because the banks in Asheville, anyway, just aren't really interested in solar yet. The next barrier to solar is the complexity, so it can be a really confusing process for homeowners who aren't already involved in energy. So there's the permitting, the interconnection stuff with the utility, there's the tax credit piece, there's financing, technical questions about components and all that. So we address that through a bunch of education events and workshops that we did, outreach, resources. We had an accountant come in and talk about the tax credits. Here's exactly how much you need to make. Here's how you fill out the forms. We had presenters come from the Department of Energy and talk about the components and how it works. And so we just covered everything and left a lot of room to answer, hopefully, everybody's questions and address any reservations that were out there. And then the last barrier is customer inertia. So Germany is the largest solar market in the world. And also, just a note on that, they're a really dark, cold country. So it kind of shows that the dark like sunlight dark. But anyway, so they have this thing down, solar there. It's very standardized. And the process in Germany between a customer deciding they want to go solar and then actually using, like getting panels up on their roof and using that energy, the average is 10 days. That's what the process takes. Here in the US, the studies that I've seen put that average anywhere between 6 months and 2 years. So we have a lot of work to do and a lot of opportunity to reduce, because that's all soft cost stuff, and I won't get into that yet. But anyway, so Solar as Asheville addresses customer inertia we have this limited time deal, this really specific campaign. We're offering this, technology at this price for this amount of time, and you have until this day to decide if you want to do it or not. And that's effective. It works really well. So just a look at where we're at in the process. So in May, and there's actually a few months of back work too in March and April, but in May, you can go ahead and you can push all of it and bring them all up. So in May, we selected the community. So we chose 4 pilot neighborhoods in Asheville to work through and focus our outreach. And we had neighborhoods would apply, and then we would select them. Can't see it? Oh, okay. Well, I can. So the first box is select community. That was in May. So that process, and then we picked these 4 neighborhoods, and they had volunteer leaders from each neighborhood who they wanted to do it, and they were going to help. Then we selected our installer in July, so we put out an RFP to 34 installers in the region, and we showed them what we were doing. We gave them a tier, and it had 5 different scenarios. So the first one was, okay, if we can get 0 to 10 people to sign up, what's the best pricing you can give us? We can get 10 to 20 people to sign up. What's the best? And it went from there. So we received our proposals. We selected Sundance Power Systems, which is a local solar installer in Asheville. Absolutely tremendous. It's just been really fun to work with them. And they gave us great pricing too. The tier 5 pricing, which we will most likely hit, is 36% below the North Carolina state average from last year. So it's pretty significant. Let's see, August to October, that should say, we did outreach and workshops. So we had a big Solar 101 event, kind of like, well, it was a little different than this, but we just went over every single part of the process. We answered everybody's questions. We got into like the details and gave real numbers and pricing, and it was really powerful. We had 90 people signed up for the program just there at that event alone. And then we had 6 more smaller events like that in each of these pilot neighborhoods, plus 2 other neighborhoods, and throughout the next month and a half. And that was fun too. It was just a place for to build community and put a face on solar and show that you're not doing this alone. We're all doing this together. Look, here's your neighbors who are doing it with you, kind of thing. So then we had enrollment was about a month and a half. Enrollment period, and we got 368 people signed up in Asheville to put solar on their roof, which is pretty incredible, and it definitely exceeded our expectations. So right now, Sundance is getting through the sites. They're assessing each home to decide if it's suitable for solar or not. give the homeowner a proposal, and then homeowners will have until February 28th to decide if they're going to close that, go under contract or not. So again, so over 500 people from Asheville inquired about the program, wanted to do it, came to an event. 368 of them signed up to actually go solar. 144 of the sites, so this is even a few, this is a little bit old, but we're about halfway through the site assessments. So far, 70% of the sites are viable for solar. That's really significant and incredible number. In some of the other Solaris campaigns, that number has been more like 10% of the sites are viable. So that's pretty cool. And we've got 16 contracts so far closed. We're just kind of moving into the contract phase. We're in tier 2 pricing. We're projecting anywhere from 140 to 150 contracts. Of the people who signed up will go under contract by that February 28th deadline. So that's 750 kilowatts of new solar capacity added to our grid, 2.5 million in local investments, and tier 5 pricing, like I said. And then I guess this is what we'll probably talk about today, I imagine, but just kind of for looking forward, some of the opportunities that have presented themselves. So there was a ton of interest from the smaller towns in Western North Carolina. We had 70 homeowners from 17 towns specifically sign up for the program, and then we had to tell them, you know, unfortunately we can't get you in on this pilot program because it's only for people with an Asheville City mailing address, but just a ton of interest regionally, and I guess I just heard the other day Solarize Durham is starting and underway maybe, and looking to roll early next year, and I think I've heard Solarize Raleigh might be coming, and I don't know, so that's really cool. Definitely an opportunity to, and we're looking at this right now with Self-Help Credit Union to see if we can offer a local financing option in the future as opposed to the Boston-based Admirals, which is fantastic option, but it would be nice to be able to keep dollars in the community. And then I guess it kind of goes without saying, but there's definitely an opportunity to tie in other clean energy solutions in education while we're doing all these things. Energy efficiency, community solar, which I know Jeff has touched or talked about, and commercial solar, etc. So that's all I've got for slides, and I probably went over my 5-minute thing, so thank you.
Next, we have Jeff Deal, who is the Senior Project Manager for the Appalachian Institute for Renewable Energy. He is a self-professed renewable energy geek. He has a bachelor's in computer science and applied mathematics. Jeff has worked as a computer programmer and many other things. I'll leave it at that. Things I can't pronounce. His renewable energy interests include energy efficiency, photovoltaics, wind energy, and many other things. He's got a lot of experience in all of these. Jeff also serves as an information technology consultant for Appalachian Voices, and he worked there on the ilovemountains.org campaign, which many folks may be familiar with. So, welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be among you folks today. Again, I am Jeff Deal with the Appalachian Institute for Renewable Energy, but we like to just shorten that to AIR because it just rolls off the tongue better. What we work to do is to create public-private partnerships that develop community renewable energy. So what we have today, as I think many of our speakers have tipped their hat to, is a finance problem. If you want to get braces or buy a car, a house, or a college education, there's financing mechanisms for making that happen. If you want to put solar on your house, you have to find $25,000, $40,000 lying around, put it in a suitcase, and then go buy your solar system, right? So that's kind of a sort of a sticker shock for most of us who've looked into this. So what the Appalachian Institute for Renewable Energy AIR has done is created a means where nonprofits and municipalities, schools, churches can access tax credits or these coupons for renewable energy. So really, all of our renewable energy incentives today are tax credit based. So basically, you have to pay taxes to get those credits. These credits can pay for 80 to 100% of the installed cost of the system. So the system payback is much faster. Now, solar panels, even if you don't use the coupons, are going to pay back faster than your air conditioning or baseboard electric heating, right? Like, that's never going to pay back. It's always going to cost you money. But what we like to do is crowdfund tax equity. And what tax equity is it's basically ultimately, as Congress has defined it, it's a way of investing in your community. So right now you have two choices if you have a tax bill. You can write that check to the IRS, as most of us have done faithfully for a very long time and will continue to do. And that's fine, that goes for great things. But you can also take that tax bill and you can invest it in renewable energy at your house and your community. And AIR works with folks who have this kind of tax equity lying around to help them invest that in schools, municipalities, or nonprofits they care about. So I have a whole slew of slides and a lot of spreadsheets. Getting you started talking on that is very easy. Getting you to shut up about it is a lot harder to do. But I'll be happy to share that with you, and I do want to leave time for your questions. And I look forward to hearing what you guys think and what your solar ambitions are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And last but not least, our final speaker today for our panel is Reverend Michael McLean. He is the Southeast Regional Coordinator with Creation Justice Ministries and formerly the National Council of Churches. I've known Reverend McLean for a number of years now, and he is a mover and shaker in the environmental justice world and a huge addition to our movements to see clean energy coming forward to fruition in the Southeast. Reverend McLean has a long history working on national political campaigns as a political advisor and top political aide. Michael McLean is an ordained Baptist and was educated at 2 different theological seminaries as well as Livingston College and Shaw University. He served as a pastor and assistant pastor at multiple churches around the region, the Carolinas, including here in Charlotte at the St. Paul Baptist Church. Reverend McLean is recognized across the region as one of the most influential voices for environmental hazards impacting African American families. So very pleased to have the Reverend with us today.
Thank you. I want to thank Myers Park Baptist Church for hosting this. I want to thank the environmental organizations that have made it possible for me to be with you. It's certainly good to be home. I am a North Carolinian, raised in Iredell County, just a couple of blocks up the street from Charlotte. Why is this important to the church, particularly the African American church? Very often, meetings of this nature, very seldom is the black church or the African American community even brought to the table, even brought into the room. The African Americans do care about environmental issues. And unfortunately for us, environmental hazards impact us more severely than they do you. I'm not here as an environmentalist, I'm not here as an economist, I'm here as a servant of God, and to say to all of us that we must care for the least of these. We are our brother's keepers. African Americans unfortunately live in the worst environmental areas in the United States of America. Therefore, those of us who are fortunate to live in nicer neighborhoods, nicer communities, away from toxic dump sites, away from plants and so forth, we breathe a little cleaner air. But for those who, unfortunately, who cannot get away from there, the same is not true for them. African Americans spend more money on energy-related purchases than any race in America today, documented. African Americans live in the worst environmental areas in the United States. A lot of that is due, African Americans are still largely renters and not owners. And unfortunately, if I'm a landlord and I'm renting to you, the law does not require me to give you energy efficiency as it relates to an apartment or a home. It says that it must be decent, clean, and affordable. Somebody else say amen. So every time the price of energy spikes up and down, the person who lives there is going to pay more for it. Unfortunately, persons of poverty and of color, fortunately, still not driving the most energy-efficient automobiles. Here again, when gasoline prices go up and down, they are going to spend more money. The asthmatic rates in the United States for African Americans is 3 to 4 times higher than it is for white Americans in these United States. We do not know, and I say we, nor does the medical profession know, what causes asthma. But I'm told by all the medical professionals I've worked with for the past 6 years in this work, that they do know that asthma and bad air quality does not go together. So if I'm living in an area where the air quality is very bad, and I'm an asthmatic person, when I have an asthma attack, it's going to be more severe. And the chance of me having an asthma attack becomes greater because of where I live. The ER for persons without insurance emergency room costs way, way more than it does going to a local physician's office. Now, I don't know which side of the aisle you're on. I'm not here for a political reason, as in forward to affordable health care, affordable health care. But I can assure you, those of us who are working, those of us who have vital incomes, we are paying every time if someone ends up in the emergency room with no insurance. Those of us who are taxpayers in a particular county, homeowners in a county, we're paying for that. That's coming out of your bottom line, and it is more expensive. The church is concerned because it is a moral issue for us. We're not concerned about the wealthy homes that are built on the seashores and the nice riverbanks and so forth that may end up being flooded, they end up sinking. That's not our concern. Our concern is about the least of these. We're concerned about people. It does not matter what race, creed, or color. We're concerned about people. And when people are suffering because of the greed of industry, I'm often asked when I'm around the nation speaking and talking, Reverend McLean, is it racial? I don't think sometimes it's so much racial as it is greed. Amen. As it is greed. I'm in the Appalachian areas of North Carolina and West Virginia, and I'm speaking there. Those persons don't look like me. It's a different color for me. But they're being, the same thing is being done to them. Because we're going to blow off the top of a mountain. They get to a little bit of coal that's in that mountain. And when that coal is blown off, coal has arsenic in it. And when it is blown into the sky and drops back to the ground, they're not able to capture all the coal fragment pieces. Some of those pieces end up in the rivers and the streams. Water runs over it. It dissipates into the water supply. They're drinking that. So it's not so much about the color, the race. It is about, but here again, people are people. And it does not matter to the church what color you are. And those of us who have been blessed, who God has allowed to have a good education, to earn a good living, to know right, we need to do better. And we need to press upon. I was at a conference yesterday in Atlanta. Now, we have known this for many years. It was done by Stanford University. The report came out and showed, and we'll get this out and she can put it on my website, but it talks about how Americans view climate change. The consensus has always been on our side, but we see it as real. America sees it as real. America sees it as humanly caused. America sees that. America wants something done, but for some reason, we have elected officials who don't listen to us. Somebody else say amen. We have elected politicians and do not listen to the very persons who elected them. Now somewhere I think that's wrong. I work for the National Council of Churches. And when I get to the point where I don't do what they've asked me to do or told me to do, I'm no longer going to have a job. We need to do the same thing with our elected officials. Because the American public knows, and they're beginning to say this, that climate change is humanly induced. We need to cut back. We need to slow back. But we're not, our elected officials are not doing it. Why is that? Because here again, it goes back to greed. No disrespect to our former House member here, but a lot of that is the money trail. There's a website that we use often in D.C. that tracks contributions. And we often talk about follow the money. We can pretty much look at why a person voted on a certain bill because of contributions. Now, I often say this, and I'm a firm believer that politicians can't read, but they are the best mathematicians I have ever seen. What am I saying? Like, what I'm saying is that when they hear from the voters, they listen to the voters. Because if I am not Senator McLean, if I'm not House Member McLean, if I'm not County Member McLean, or City Council School Board McLean, the lobbyists won't even give me the time of day. They will not even pursue me. So we need to begin to speak more. Meetings like this should have been packed to capacity. We should have been in the sanctuary at Myers Park. We should have had that greater number of the Coliseum here in Charlotte. The American people need to stand up and stand up for what is right. Because as a Christian, knowing very well that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, we did not create this. We are not the orders of the universe. And you cannot keep messing with something that God has created and expecting it to stay the way that God made it. Whatever God you believe in, whatever spirit you answer to, it's great common sense that if you keep destroying Mother Earth, if you keep taking from her, at some point she's going to call back. And we will not be able to withstand the wrath. There is a reason the Bible talks about the thou shalt nots. That's just not there just to be there. The things that we must begin to realize. We owe this to our church. I am 60 years of age. As I said, I grew up in Iredell County in North Carolina. Had families that had farms up in Alexander County and so forth. I could go in the woods and play and drink water running off of a rock. My family's in the film business, been in the film business for over 100 years. We didn't die because the water was clean. You let me go to that same stream in Iredell County today and try that. I'll be in Iredell Memorial Hospital tonight. It's a proven fact. And many of you probably in my age group. You know what I'm saying, it's the truth. We have got to go to clean energy. It's not only going to save money, it's going to save more than it's going to save some lives. It's going to save some lives. And that is why the National Council of Churches in 2006 was approached by the Congressional Black Caucus. I don't know if you know who the NCC was, or still is. We are the largest, oldest ecumenical body in the United States, representing 37 denominations, 285,000 congregations, and 85 million members who make up the NCC. We in June changed our name to Creation Justice Ministries, but the NCC is still intact. We work on a number of issues that involve human rights and so forth. Here again, we are not environmentalists. We are concerned about people. And what I've tried to do also in the African American faith community is to educate African Americans to the fact that the environmental movement is not white Anglo-Saxon. We need the African Americans to be involved in this. We need people involved in this. Politicians need to hear from people. If they only hear from the lobbyists on a certain issue that they need to get passed, and you say nothing, you don't show up, you don't speak out, you don't write a letter to the editor, you don't write an op-ed, you don't make phone calls to their congressional offices or their local offices. In their mind, you are for this. But as soon as he votes for something, you want to jump on him. But he never heard from you. Somebody say amen. Amen. We have to give them the cover. I think they want to do what is right because they understand that they are people just like we are people. They want to do what's right for their constituents. But their constituents need to show up and let them know what needs to be done. Old folk used to say, when a horse leaves the barn, don't go try to catch him. He's already gone. So we need to become more diligent. We need to become more involved in this. And the church has a moral issue, a moral right to speak to these issues. I know there's often a big controversy. Why should the church be involved in this? Why should the church speak to this? Because the church is in the people's business. And anything that affects God's people affects the church. Here we go, brother. Because the church is people. Without people, there is no church. Amen. And the last time I checked, I'm finished. Planet Earth was entrusted to the Christian. It was not entrusted to the world. We want to get on business and government. Yes, they should do things right. Yes, they should be moral. Yes, they should be ethical. But I do believe that the Christian church, the church of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, must always be about doing what is right. I thoroughly believe that. There's no way that we can mistreat people and not take care of people in the eyes of God and consider ourselves Christian men and women. We must always do what is right. So if the church is not concerned about the least, the church is not concerned about, God made everything in sync and in harmony. We need the things that God put here to live with us. We need to coexist with them. It's a sad thing that children today will not get to enjoy a lot of the things of nature that you and I did enjoy, things that we have taken for granted. A lot of those things are gone. And they're not gone because of the act of God. They're gone because of the greed of mankind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend McLean. That was inspiring and humbling. We're going to go into question and answer now, and we are going to open it up. We'd like to take questions. We have a microphone that will be available for the audience, so I'll look for hands, and Monica will run. I'm going to take moderator privilege and ask the first question. And I'd like to address it to Sean. North Carolina is ranked 5th in the nation for installed solar capacity as of 2012. And I guess I'm curious, what does that mean for North Carolina? Where are we? How do we compare to other states in terms of residential solar, and where do we need to be?
Okay, I'll try that. First off, North Carolina is very much ahead, and it is because of the 35% tax credit that the state offers for installation of renewable energy. We are, it's fair to say, I was in New York yesterday, meeting with a fairly large capital firm that's looking at how many projects can they do that. Most of this solar right now is taking the form of ground-mounted solar. We just finished, SECDC just finished facilitating a 24-megawatt facility down in Washington, North Carolina. The average facility right now in North Carolina is 5-megawatt facility, and there's some financial reasons why it's that size. Most of it right now, though, is ground-mounted, not rooftop. There are some notable rooftop installations, but most of it is ground-mounted that's going in. That's a function of economics, and I don't need to go into all of those details. The tax credit is the driving force. We have one of the most lucrative tax credits in the nation right now. And so that is very much behind it. And it needs to be there, and we're achieving this. The real success isn't just that the tax credit drove this, but it drove it in a state that has some of the lowest cost energy in the nation. Now, that's a success. If you can make it work here, what we're telling the whole rest of the world is you can make it work anywhere. And we're making it work. And what it means to the state of North Carolina, 16,000 jobs since 2010. That's no small accomplishment. Over $1 billion in investment from outside the state. Over $1 billion since 2010 has flooded into North Carolina. And look at the tax credit. You hear so many of the ilk of my party criticizing tax credits, like the state tax credit. But when you really boil it down, what you're saying is, as a North Carolina business, I'm going to take some of my profits and reinvest it in my own state.
Yeah.
Now, guys, would they rather be sent it to the Cayman Islands? I mean, is that more efficient somehow for the state? It's this disconnect, this ideological puritanism that is the opposition there, not an economic. You don't see any economists coming up saying this is a bad idea. You'll only see somebody that is just working on a theory. The growth in this industry also, these 16,000 jobs, for the most part, are out-of-work construction workers that have moved over into this industry. The very group that got hurt the worst in 2008 is the group that is filling this niche. It's essential that we keep this up. The second part that it means is North Carolina has become go-to people for the technology, installation expertise, how to do it expertise. Now, we all know is that this is a future industry. It's not a future industry, it's here. It's a budding industry. It's like the car industry was in about 1910. Right now, what we have is fairly crude. It's going to be smartphone-like in another 10 years. But because it's going on here first, we're the ones gaining all the expertise. And we're beginning to see North Carolina contractors being taken to Arizona to install fields. We do it better. We do it smarter. We do it faster. All of this is what aggregate economics is about. All of this is how you really grow an industry and an economy. So, in answer to your question, that's kind of the broad base. There ain't nothing bad about what's going on at all. It's probably one of the most stellar successes in the nation. Unfortunately, just not everybody can see that.
I'll actually bring the microphone to you guys. Okay, first question. Go ahead, Debbie.
This is for Jeff. Actually, it's for all of you. I'm a member of PD Electric Membership Cooperative. I tried to get my CEO to come today, but he's not ready yet. I'm not sure it's going to take another 20 years, like they've been talking about for the last 40 years. But anyway, he did say that maybe in January they'd consider community solar. Maybe. So I was wondering, first of all, Jeff, have you worked with any electric cooperatives to help them get the financing? That would be number one. And would you come talk to Donnie if he's willing to talk to you?
Definitely, absolutely. We've worked with co-ops in Kentucky, or beginning to work with co-ops in Kentucky, but we'd love to work with North Carolina co-ops as well, so that'd be a great opportunity.
Okay, great. And Katie, would you come and share with us what Asheville's accomplishing? Because I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Thank you. And Reverend McLean, since Anson County is a very poor county and is on the list to be fracked if they should be allowed to go ahead with this, would you be willing to come and talk to our county, our community, and our churches?
Yes, I'll be honored to come.
Thank you. And of course, Sean, we can use all the help we can get with the politics. Thank you.
Great, next question. Right here. In the plaid shirt.
Hi, this question is for Katie. In Asheville, if you don't live in those 4 selected neighborhoods, can you still take advantage of that 38% discount?
Yeah, so the pilot program actually closed on October 11th, and we're working right now on a proposal for an expanded solarized campaign for Western North Carolina, but it would still be town-based. So solarize Weaverville, solarize Hendersonville, so, because we found the research shows that's how this model works best. And for the pilot program, originally my proposal was just to do this in one neighborhood and see how it worked. So we selected one neighborhood. Then there was so much interest, so we opened it up to 4 neighborhoods, the 4 that I mentioned earlier. And then there was even more interest. So then we actually opened it up to everyone in Asheville with an Asheville city mailing address. But we still focused our outreach in those pilot neighborhoods, and that's where sort of most of the effort, boots on the ground, kind of volunteer grassroots efforts occurred. But 50% of the participants who enrolled in the program were from one of those pilot neighborhoods. The other 50% were from all the other neighborhoods in Asheville. So there's still a huge opportunity even in Asheville. And it also speaks to the model that we're using, that because these 4 neighborhoods are tiny. I mean, they're just really tiny pocket neighborhoods of even bigger neighborhoods in Asheville. So to get 150, 160 installations in these tiny neighborhoods, it just shows that this neighborhood model really works, and it can be used to deploy a number of clean energy solutions and programs, I believe, not just, in our case, it was directly installing solar PV, but I think there's definitely an opportunity to use it for other, programs.
Second question here, in the black.
And I'm not Johnny Cash. Hey there. My question is the figure Katie listed as around 21,000 as the cost. I think for the average American family, that's beyond something that they can throw down. What happened to the idea that was posted a few years ago about renting solar panels? Can anybody speak to that, please?
So the third, I think you're referring to the third-party PPA model and so that's sort of, if you think of like the big solar cities of the country, Solar City for solar, and that's what they've been able to do in states that have, like California, that allow that, Colorado, that have these really well-developed residential markets. But we can't do that in North Carolina, and I should give the microphone to someone else. I haven't heard any kind of talk on that coming back.
Who wants to take that?
What you're pointing out is something that is very true. As Kate said, we don't have third-party sales in North Carolina. So if I lease you a solar panel, I can't charge you based on the amount of electricity it produces. That's an economic disconnect. Typically you want the lease to be directly related to the amount of benefit it gives you. There are models that are being put together right now that are going to circumvent that are simply going to lease it to you for a fixed amount. It'll be a lease based really on what your savings are going to be. It's been employed in other states. It is coming here. There are companies right now in North Carolina that are rapidly, ours being one of them, that are rapidly putting those together and encouraging that formation. It has delayed here simply because this ground mounted scenario has been such a hot potato and everybody's been so deeply involved in that. But it is quickly evolving. I think by the end of 2014, you will see at least one, if not two, companies that will install on the roof and lease you the system. Now it is, keep in mind that there's a couple of different nuances there. One, if unfortunately, and this is where the economics will start breaking down, it's very difficult to do if it's a landlord scenario. It has to be a house where the homeowner takes responsibility, much as if you lease a car, you have to provide insurance for it and maintenance for it. It has to be a scenario where there can be a lien against the homeowner, that kind of thing. Without third-party sales, it really is difficult to help the people that need the help the most. And it's a crying shame that in a state where the Republicans have both houses and the governorship, that we don't allow free market behavior. There is no excuse for it.
Just to put a very fine point on what this gentleman just said, it was right. You can sell electricity in North Carolina to anybody you want as long as it's Duke Energy. It's like that simple. So until we can really, somebody can come to your house, put solar panels on them, do this fine economic service, and be remunerated the way Duke Energy would be expected to be remunerated, we won't have those models. So we really have to, it's interesting that we basically have a corporation that can levy a tax on North Carolinians via rate increase, right, where they're guaranteed a profit through this taxation on whatever expenses they want to generate. I mean, this is not an idea Adam Smith would cotton to, just to put it bluntly. And this is why we don't, we have the Research Triangle Park dedicated. I mean, it was a great, and I think here our politicians deserve a lot of credit. They created this very great environment for tech companies to come into and grow our state into an incredibly lucrative economic market for high-tech services, and we've done that. With this kind of these solar businesses now, it's being perturbed. Now, Duke's getting its utility scale electricity, but we're not getting electricity on our houses. And this is a problem because it costs $21,000. So, I think we need to work with our politicians here to create better policy that supports a better future for our state. And that's why, in a nutshell, we don't have these lease opportunities for our homes and our schools and our businesses and churches. So,
Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a question right here, gentlemen.
So now don't know exactly how to phrase this, but it has to do with Duke Energy. So I grew up in Charlotte, under the shadow of Duke. It was sort of like the fourth member of the Trinity or something. But as I grew up and I got a little more aware of this company, the first time I started noticing it was that Duke owns some coal mines in Kentucky, Harlan County, and was viciously trying to destroy the Union there. And I began to wake up. So my question is, should we be waiting on Duke Power? I mean, it seems like solar energy should be liberating us from Duke Power. I wouldn't own a share of stock of Duke Power myself for all the reasons, that we've given here. So I guess I'm trying to ask, what's the proper strategy, personally and as a group, toward Duke Energy? I can't see how Duke can profit. They are a monopoly. They haven't had to compete. And they've had a monopoly not only over the customer base, but also the technology. There was no other technology. Your fireplace, that was about it. So now, solar really looks to me like it gives people potential to get off the grid, or perhaps to, buy electricity from somebody else, for example.
Or drive your electric car on sunshine. I mean, this is how powerful this idea is.
Right. I want to ask one last question about the co-ops. We have a house in the mountains, and we are customers of French Broad Electric. French Broad Electric has put a cap of 100 households now that can sell electricity back into the grid. They say that if they allow any more, they have to raise their prices. To reduce their costs, they decided to herbicide thousands of acres under the grid, under the power line, everywhere, along rivers, didn't matter. They put it over wells. The CEO makes $300,000 a year, and so on. I'm wondering, how do you move these co-ops too? We actually tried a movement to get new people on the board, and the local people saw it somehow as a carpetbagger type of thing, and they voted to keep the current administration in, keep the herbicides in, and so on, and to keep solar out. So any ideas on that? That's not a Duke Energy. There are no shareholders. That's a private co-op, a different issue.
I'll take moderator privilege again and actually try to respond a little bit to the co-op question. Southern Alliance for Clean Energy has done a lot of work around co-op issues in Georgia, and I'm somewhat familiar with the French Broad Electric situation. And co-ops are member-owned, and a lot of people have forgotten and don't realize that you actually, if you are paying your electric bill to a co-op, that is your co-op. You have a direct voice, and I would say keep going after the election process, because if you are persistent and continue to push to get people who can open their minds to other opportunities around these issues, that is the best way to make change and to continue to go after with them. And I'd be happy to talk to you offline as well about some of our other experiences around co-op. Does anyone else want to respond to some of his questions around Duke? And all right.
I work with Duke, on a number of different things. Oh, I'm sorry. First off, what you're saying is exactly right. I understand exactly where you're coming from. Like you, I grew up in Charlotte. Fourth member of the Trinity is about right. I've chosen instead just to refuse to move. That I'm going to be Sean, and Duke's going to have to get used to that. Duke is a group that can be strongly influenced by you. But the influence has to be the influence of someone who is nurturing them into a better way, rather than just bashing them. All of us, I think it was Donnie that said, never criticize somebody for having the same weaknesses we all do. Duke's paradigm is shifting under their feet. They are confused, scared, terrified, and overconfident all at the same time. They've had the world be exactly the way it is for almost 100 years, with no changes, no technology that really threatened their paradigm, no movement that really threatened their monopoly. no motivation to change. And so to understand where they are today, you have to think of it that way. It's no different than, my wife can't get me to tweet. It's not in me to do this. And I'm sure she looks at me and rolls her eyes and just says, God, we're getting old. We look at our kids and they do things that are not in their own best interest, but we don't bash them for it. We nurture them along. We have to employ that same thing with Duke. With my dealings with Duke, when I get the opportunity to make that input, I try to always phrase it that way, is y'all have got to change. We've seen the telecommunications industry. It changed. It changed. They do not do landline phones anymore. They broke out of that mold. It was uncomfortable. It was traumatic, but it happened. Duke's going to do the same thing. So the input you can make that is so essential is to keep the heat on, but it's also essential that the heat be in a format that is going to nurture change, not nurture animosity.
Thank you. Okay, one more question. Oh, we have so many hands. I already nodded to this gentleman here with glasses.
My name is Francis Koster. I used to run the solar and wind energy programs for the Tennessee Valley Authority and set them up for the University of Massachusetts. I'm currently associated with Jeff. I want to ask for a show of hands. How many of you think Duke makes its profit from selling electricity? How many people think Duke makes its profit from selling electricity? That is by and large not true. They make their profit based on a formula that is dependent on how much they spent to build things. So one of the targets of opportunity in our discussion, and I agree with you, sir, Sean, on the way in which we need to make our statements, is the Public Utilities Commission, because they're the ones who craft the formula that rewards the investor. So as long as they continue to reward the investor for building stuff, they're going to make incentives so you don't build stuff. And that is a major underlying weakness in the approach of the environmental and solar community in North Carolina. There is a profit motive at work, which I don't have any disagreement with, but you don't recognize that it's at work, and you need to get that changed. The second thing I want to talk about, I spent yesterday at the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce meeting in Ballantyne. There were 2,000 people in the room talking about energy and its role in the economy. There were 6 hours of presentations, and not a single speaker mentioned climate change. Not a single speaker. About a couple of years ago, the International Panel on Climate Change, which is the UN group of over 6,000 scientists, they said that if the world burns 1/3 of the coal and oil and natural gas that we already know about and can get out of the ground at market price, burn 1/3 of it, the earth is toast. 1/3. And 2,000 people yesterday were talking about how they're going to do more of that. So we have a major issue, because how many of you here are members of a Chamber of Commerce? Okay, about 4%. We have to take this message to the Chamber of Commerce and to the economic development authorities and the people who are interested in job development, because the jobs that currently exist will begin to go away once the public consciousness on climate change emerges. So I'm going to stop with that, but I do want to urge you to lobby your Chamber of Commerce and get at least an environmentalist on these panels that they're holding.
Great, thank you so much. One short question. Who has a short question? Okay. Yes, right there.
Hi there. This is just a real elementary question. Katie, I saw on your slide there where it said that there's a small percentage of solar that is not viable. what would make a location or a company not viable?
So that would be if you don't own your home, if you don't have a south-facing roof, if you don't have enough space on your roof, if you live in a historic district, things like that. So that's more like the actual tangible site, the suitability of your home and roof for solar.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up here. I think all of our panelists will probably be available for personal questions offline as we wrap it up, but please join me in thanking them very much.
A huge thank you again to all of our panelists and to Ula for leading that. That was a fantastic conversation. And for those of you who had friends who couldn't make it tonight, we will have this been recorded. We will definitely be able to share it with the community far and wide. I have 4 quick things I want to share with you, so bear with me here. So first, when you sat down, there was a yellow sheet of paper. So after attending an educational event, I'm often wondering what's next. So I've gotten some really great information, but how do we actually apply this? So if you are interested in actually helping bring solar energy to Charlotte, please fill out this survey. We've got folks walking around with extra pens. Courtney right here's got some pens for you. If you need a pen, please fill this out. And I'm gonna ask Katie to jump up and actually stand over here, and she's gonna collect them. If you don't wanna share your information, at least fill out what's in that box. Because we're actually going to take the input that you gave about these different types of programs and what you would like to see to bring them to Charlotte in the spring. We are, when I'm finished talking and after the Reverend's gotten a chance to add one more thing, we're going to head to lunch. So we actually have gotten free lunch for folks. We've got meat, veggie, and vegan pizza. Please do not eat the vegan pizza unless you do not eat dairy and vegan food. Some of the veggie is also gluten-free on a wheat, there's a wheat bread and also a gluten-free veggie there. Kate Green, I'm scanning the audience for Kate. Kate is holding up a sign that says tour. So what you should do if you want to actually check out the solar panels that are installed right here on this church. Part of the reason we came and had the event today is because this building is in part getting powered by solar, right? And we want to make sure we're supporting the efforts that are here. So Kate is going to be out in the hallway right here where you signed in, and please sign in if you did not get a chance to do so. And she's going to leave at 12:35, so you got about 10 minutes. To go on a quick 15-minute tour. You actually get to go up to the roof and check out the solar panels. If you have questions like, do they make sound? You can actually go up and see for yourself. And then we're asking everyone after lunch, definitely feel free to keep checking out all of our tablers. At 1 o'clock, right outside in the corner, we have invited all of the media in Charlotte to come and actually see people in action calling for clean energy. So, where are they? We've got some clean energy up here. Clean Energy for Science. We've got a lot of volunteers made really great signs and banners, and we're going to stand out there on the side of the road for a quick 15-minute press conference. A lot of the signs say things like honk for solar, so we're going to try and engage our neighbors and get some pro-clean energy attention there. And then the last thing, there was a request by our photographers if we could actually, before we break for lunch, take a quick group photo, which I realize will be a fun logistical event. So if folks in the first 2 rows want to stay seated, and in the back couple of rows want to stand up, we're going to